Okay, let's continue the overview of the endocrine system by looking at the second messenger pathways that are used by your water-soluble hormones, okay? So there are two common second messenger pathways that we're going to discuss. Okay? The first one is called the CAMP system, okay? CAMP, cyclic AMP pathway. In this pathway, here are the steps. So again, hormone binds to receptor, which is on the cell membrane, will trigger a G protein that will activate an enzyme. In this case, the enzyme that's activated is called adenylate cyclase. Adenylate cyclase is the enzyme that the G protein turns on, okay, called AC. Then this enzyme will convert ATP into cyclic AMP. We have seen this before in the olfactory system, all right? And then CAMP will produce the effects. And these effects can be various things. It can be perhaps to open channels, ion channels. They may also activate other enzymes, all right? But there are various effects. But then all I want for you to know is how we get to CAMP, all right? Hormone binds to receptor, turns on a G protein inside the cell. It's usually a membrane inside the cell membrane. Usually it's a protein inside the cell membrane. Then that G protein will always next activate an enzyme. In this case, the enzyme is called adenylate cyclase, which then converts ATP to CAMP, and then CAMP produces the effects. Another pathway here that's used by, again, water-soluble hormones is what's called the DAG Ip3 system. So another pathway, DAG Ip3 pathway. And here we go. Again, first step, hormone binds to receptor that's on the cell membrane, okay? This then, once again, activates the G protein. That's usually a peripheral protein in the cell membrane, the G protein. That G protein will next turn on an enzyme called it PLC, which stands for phospholipase C. And that enzyme will convert a lipid that's a part of the cell membrane called PIP2, phosphoinositol diphosphate, convert that into IP3, inositol triphosphate, IP3, plus another molecule called diacylglycerol. And then these two can now act as second messengers. Usually IP3 tends to promote calcium release from the ER, while DAG usually goes on to activate other enzymes inside the cell. All right, so that's the overview of those two common second messenger pathways that water-soluble hormones use to produce their effects on cells. Okay, let's continue the story here. So we'll next look at how to control receptors, the number of receptors that's on the cell membrane. There are two common adaptations that cells use in order to maintain their responsiveness. So for example, this is a cell. if you have, say, hormones, these are receptors on the cell, okay? If something happens where you have low levels of hormone, this cell may respond by increasing the number of receptors, make more receptors. Okay. That's called upregulation. When cells make more receptors to express on the cell surface, that it can respond to all of the available hormones in the blood or in the vicinity. That's upregulation. The opposite happens when you have, say, high levels of hormone. Then the cell instead will withdraw the receptors. So you have less receptors there. Less. This is called down regulation. Okay. And the idea is, if you want to increase your responsiveness, you put more receptors there. If you want to dampen down your responsiveness, you remove the receptors. So you can down-regulate them or up-regulate them. So, okay, that's how you control levels of receptor that reflects the level of hormones which are available in the blood. Another thing I want to talk about is that these hormones also can interact with each other. For example, the same cell may respond to both to 2 or 3 hormones. And so when they are acting simultaneously on the same cell, they have an effect. And these interactions can be defined in three ways. So we have interactions between hormones, all right? So the first we're going to discuss what's called the permissive interactions, where one hormone allows another hormone to have a bigger effect. For example here, thyroid hormone usually causes epinephrine to have a bigger effect, because thyroid hormone, it causes the the increased expression of your adrenergic receptors. And because you have more receptors available, then epinephrine will have a bigger effect. So this is an example of how thyroid hormone is then being permissive. It's allowing for this hormone to have a bigger effect by first, basically preparing the cell to respond to it better. So that's a permissive interaction. Another interaction we can talk about is one of synergism. Something's in my eyes here. Okay. So synergism, or synergistic interactions, I should say. Here, 2 hormones create a bigger effect than when they act alone. For example, we use the examples of glucagon and epinephrine. These 2 hormones or chemicals will cause an increased release of glucose in the blood when they act together. So that's an example of a synergistic interaction. And the last one we'll talk about is the antagonistic interaction. So antagonism or antagonistic interactions, here the hormones oppose each other. These are opposing effects of hormones. A good example here is insulin acts to decrease glucose in the blood, while glucagon acts to increase glucose in the blood. So when they both act on the same cell, they tend to kind of offset each other. Okay, we'll pause there.